Everyone, this is Rex, and welcome back to the kingdom. Going to be going over Enchanter spells from a level 11 to level 30, and going over which ones are critical, which ones are good, under what circumstances, and which ones you can pass on. At the very beginning when money is tight. If you like the video, please subscribe and hit the like button. Be safe. At level 11, enchanters get charm. It will charm a monster up to level 25, costs 60 mana, and can last up to a duration of 20 minutes and 30 seconds. Though with level 11 enchanter charisma levels, intelligence levels, it is not going to last 20 minutes. I can promise you that. But this is still a critical spell to get, and one of the mainstays of the Enchanter spell line. Next is Choke for 73 mana. Decrease current hit points by 35 when you cast the spell. Decrease strength by 10, decrease agility by 10, decrease the current hit points by 22 per tick. Duration is 8 ticks. And a 3-second cast time. So this is your upgrade to your Suffocating Spear, and this is also a required spell. Illusion High Elf, if you like your illusions, you can get this, it's up to you, that's personal preference. So that's neither needed or critical, it's just all personal preference. For Mass and Thinking Mana, those are required for trade skills and certain spell creations. So if you are interested in doing that, these spells are be required. Otherwise, they can wait until later. Level 12 is Bind Affinity. It will bind you to your current location. You can also cast this on other players. It costs 100 mana. And it has a 6-second cast time with a 1.5 second recast timer. This is also a very good spell and is critical, and later on, especially when the game first starts, you can actually make some plat binding other people who don't have access to the spell. Enduring Breath is a good spell. I do suggest getting it, maybe not at level 12, there are more important spells you can get. Basically let you breathe underwater, or later like in the Luckland expansion in the gray where there's no air and you would suffocate. That is also a helpful spell, but it is not required at this time, but it is a good spell and I would recommend picking it up at some point. The next two spells at level 12 are both illusions, same thing as before, personal preference, up to you. Level 13, you get Enthrall, which will mesmerize up to level 55 with a memory blur chance of 41%, and it costs 50 mana. The main difference between this and the level 4 mes is the duration. This one will last 8 ticks. So that means this will last 48 seconds. So this is a spell you can use up to level 55 that will let you keep a large number of mobs locked down if you have the mana pool to keep casting it. This is also a critical spell. Illusion Dwarf, personal preference. Rune 1, absorb 100% of all damage until 55 damage is absorbed. Costs 41 mana to cast, and it does take a component. I don't remember what the component is at this point, it's been years since I've used it. But it does take a component. It is a good spell, but not required. Enchant Electrum is only needed if you are doing trade skills. It is a good way to make plat, making enchanted jewelry, so if that is your intention, I definitely recommend getting it, otherwise it can wait. Visibility versus Undead. It is not on a fixed timer, but this will let you move through undead mobsters, like skeletons, ghouls, the like, and has a max duration of 27 minutes, but like I said, it's not fixed, so it can wear off after 2 ticks or could last 10 minutes. It's completely random, but it is still a very good spell and I recommend getting it right away. Charley's Animation is your level 14 pet spell. This is also a very good spell. If you're not actively into charming, I recommend getting it. I'd still recommend getting it even if you are into charming, because there are times that you're just not going to want to charm, believe me. Then at level 15, there's Identify. That's a worthless spell. I don't recommend getting it unless you just want to fill out your spellbook later on. It can wait. The next two are Illusions, again, personal preference. Levitate is also a very good spell. For 30 mana, it will let you float above the ground. If you have to fall, you don't take fall damage. Has a max duration of 20 minutes and 30 seconds. I recommend getting it, but it doesn't have to be a critical spell, so you don't have to get it right away if you're short on plat. But it is definitely one I would pick up at some point early in your Enchanter's life. Quickness is your first haste spell. Increases melee haste by 30% for 80 mana. Has a 3.1 second cast time, lasts 11 minutes, and a 1.5 second recast time. This spell is also critical. Get this right away when you turn level 15. Chase the Moon is a fear up to level 52. I recommend not getting it at this time. If you want to get it later to fill out your spellbook, you can, but it is not critical. Disempower is decreased stamina by 20, decreased strength by 15, and decreases the monster's armor class. This is also a very good spell, but not critical. I would still get it if you have the plat, but if you do not, there are more important spells to get. Mesmerization is a AoE mez, so it will mez your target and any monsters that are around it up to a certain radius. That radius is 30. See here. It has a 3-second cast timer. It has a recast time of 1.5 seconds and lasts 4 ticks maximum. So that, at least until you get AA later in the game, then that will help extend it. But for right now, in Classic, it will last 4 ticks. It is a critical spell to get. It is only gotten through spell research or through buying it from someone who else has researched it. So you cannot buy this off an NPC. Hanabi Warp is your next in line for your direct damage spells. Decrease current hit points by 87. Will stun an NPC for 1 second for 38 mana. Takes 2.5 seconds to cast, 1.5 second recast time, and is a very good spell and critical to get at the level 16 when you get there. Shielding increases your max HP by 50, increases your armor class and your magic resist by 12. Again, this is a critical spell to get at level 16. Cloud increases your armor class for 40 mana. I recommend not getting this. Clerics have a better AC buff, so if only reason I would say getting this is if you spend most of your time soloing. Endure Magic is increase your magic resist by 20, 40 mana, 2.5 second recast time, and lasts 27 minutes. This is a good spell. I recommend getting it. It is not critical though, so if you don't have the plat, it's not the end of the world. But I do recommend getting it as soon as possible. Illusion Ogre, personal preference. Rizlona's Animation is your next summon pet. Again, a good spell. Even if you charm, I would recommend getting it, as there are times when charm won't be available or you just don't feel like it. So get the pet spell. If you intend on only ever charming, then you can skip this if you choose. Calm is to decrease the aggro radius to 5 up to level 50. Increase the social radius to 5 up to level 50. This is your next in line on your lull spells. This is critical to get. It is 50 mana. And it is a 2.5 second recast time. Sorry, 2.5 second cast time with a 5 second recast time and lasts 7 ticks. So that means it will last 42 seconds. It is critical. Next is Illusion Troll, personal preference. Sympathetic Aura increases your charisma by 18. This is good for both charming, and also to get slightly lower prices at merchants when you're buying something, or higher prices when you're selling something. So this is a critical spell to get also. Tashani decreases the poison counter by 1 and decreases magic resist by 23 for 20 mana. This is your debuff, your main one. It is critical to get. Berserker Strength increases strength by 25, absorbs 100% of all damage until 77 damage is absorbed, decreases your agility by 15 for 45 mana. Takes 3 seconds to cast it with an 8-second recast timer and has a duration of 3 minutes. As opposed to Rune 1, this one does not take in component, so this one is critical. Cast this on yourself whenever you think you might be taking damage. You can even cast it on the tank. If you're used to taking a bunch of damage, it is a great spell. Crystallized Mana is useful if you do trade skills or some spell research. So if you don't do that or you're not interested, it can wait. Feckless Smite decreases strength by 30. Is a good spell. I recommend getting it if you have the plat. If not, it can wait a little bit. Tiny Companion, it basically shrinks your pet by 50% for 50 mana. A nice spell, not critical. Unless you want to use it to somehow differentiate, like if you cast an illusion on your pet and you want to differentiate it from something else in the area. But otherwise, I never use Tiny Companion. Benevolence, increased faction by 200 for 50 mana. This is a critical spell. Color Shift, stun NPC for 6 seconds, or a player character for 5.25 for 40 mana, and as a caster, PB AoE, so it means it will be centered around you. This is critical, and I recommend using this in tandem with your level 4 color spell. If you hit your level 4 and then this, you can, and then later on when you get your third one, you can essentially keep a group stun locked, except for the occasional resist. But if they all have debuffs and attach on them, in theory, you can keep them stun locked almost forever. Mass Crystallized Mana, again, it's just like previous one, for trade skills or spell creation. Not required unless you decide to go that route, otherwise it's not important. Shifting Sight is a bind sight in infravision. It is not the best spell. I recommend passing it up. Alacrity, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but either way, you increase melee haste by 40% for 115 mana. It takes 4 seconds to cast, 1.5 second recast time, and lasts 11 minutes. This spell is critical as the haste upgrade. Decrease current hit points by 175 for Color Flux, and stun an NPC for 1 second for 67 mana. Spell is also critical as your direct damage upgrade. Level 22, you get Rune 2, absorb 100% of all damage until 118 damage is absorbed for 83 mana and a component. Again, I don't recommend getting the spell. It is useful at times, so I would get it when you have extra money, but it is not critical at the level you get it to have it, as long as you use Berserker Strength liberally. Bhangarh Xanimation is your next summon pet. You can choose to get that if you want to. I personally like them, but just keep in mind you cannot control your pets. Strip Enchantment will dispel. As also a very good spell. At this point, I would recommend getting this one, especially if you skip the ones earlier. This one is actually not bad for 70 mana. Level 23, you get Beguile. We'll let you charm up to level 37 for 120 mana. This is your next charm spell. 3.5 second cast time with a max duration of 20 minutes and 30 seconds. This is a critical spell to get. Major Shielding is increased max hit points by 75, increase your armor class, increase your magic resist by 14. Again, critical to get. This is your shielding upgrade, your self HP buff upgrade, so definitely get this. Tepid Deeds is a slow, decrease melee haste by 50% and increase your disease counter by 9 for 100 mana. Takes 3.5 seconds to cast it, 1.5 second recast, and will last 3 minutes and 30 seconds. If you're fairly good on mana, you can go ahead and get this and cast it. I usually save them only for named mobs until I have a higher mana pool, but it is still a critical spell. Level 24, you only get your Mass Enchant Gold and Illusion Skeleton. If you don't do trade skills or sell enchanted jewelry, you won't need the Mass Enchant Gold spells or the regular Enchant Gold, but that's up to you. Illusion, again, is personal preference. Level 25, you get Feedback. Increase damage shield by 11 for 75 mana. This is the only self-casting damage shield that enchanters get, so it is very good, and I do recommend getting it. Instill is your root upgrade for 60 mana. It takes 2.5 seconds to cast and has a duration of 1 minute and 36 seconds. So the spell is critical to get also. Then there's Listless Power, decrease agility by 35, decrease strength by 35, decrease armor class on the monster for 90 mana. It is a good spell. I would suggest getting it if you have the extra plat, but otherwise it can wait. Especially since Shaman also get the same spell. At level 26, you get Clarity. Increases your current mana by 9 per tick, 75 mana. This is what enchanters, besides Charm and Mez, are best known for, are Mind Candy. So this spell is critical, especially for casters or anyone who basically has a mana pool aside from a bard. Curse of the Simple Mind, decrease intelligence by 20, decrease wisdom by 20. This is worthless. Suffocate, decrease current hit points by 86 when cast, decrease strength by 20, decrease agility by 20, and decrease your current hit points by 42 per tick for 115 mana. Takes 3 seconds to cast, 1.5 second recast timer, and has a duration of 8 ticks. This is the next in your damage over time spell line, and it is critical to get. Clarify mana. Same thing as before, trade skills or making spells, up to you if you want to get it or not, but not critical to the class. Obscure, increase armor class for 50 mana. And I would pass, clerics have a better one, and unless you spend a lot of time soloing, it's not important. Ultra Vision, if you are a human or an erudite, I would suggest getting this spell. Otherwise, you can pass on it. Augmentation, increase melee haste by 28%, increase agility by 30, increase armor class. And this is a kind of, this is the first where it's not just straight up haste. As you can tell, the previous haste spell actually gives you a higher haste, but this increases your agility and armor class. So this spell is also critical, and I recommend getting this for 90 mana. Din's Dizzying Draught is a stun and spin for 7.5 seconds. Also decreases the armor class of the monster, decreases the current mana by 50 per tick, and decreases agility by 50. And it costs 150 to cast it, 3-second cast timer, and the last 2 ticks. Basically the 7.5 seconds. This spell is also critical to get. There are plenty of times this line of spells has saved me. Nullify Magic, again a dispel, very good one for 50 mana, I recommend getting it. Illusion is personal preference, Illusion Elemental at 29 is personal preference. Mass Clarify Mana, if you do trade skills or spell creation, get this if you choose to, it's up to you. Then at Yuline's Animation is your next summon pet spell. Again, this is personal preference. If you rely just on Charm, you can wait. But if you like having other options and not having to constantly monitor Charm, I suggest getting the Summon Pet. I do like them myself. Entrance at level 30 is Mesmerize up to level 55. Memory Blur 41% for 85 mana. And the big thing for this one is the upgrade in the duration. So from 48 seconds from the previous one to 1 minute and 12 seconds. So this spell is also critical. If you have a large number of mobs, I suggest using this over the level 4 mez. Now if you only have 1 or 2, then up to level 50, the level 4 mez will do you just fine. And Entrancing Lights will mesmerize up to level 55. It is a caster, PBOE. So again, that means it is centered on you, has a range of 30. Costs 75 mana, 1.5 second cast time, has a 12-second recast time, and will last just 1 tick. This is more of an emergency save me kind of mez. And so in that kind of sense, I would recommend getting it if you can. Like, it is not critical, it is a good spell. And Mana Sieve is decrease current mana by 370 for 100 mana. And this is what you can use to drain mana from caster mobs. That way they can not gate, they can stop casting spells on you and your group mates or your raid mates, whatever. It is a very, very good spell, and I recommend getting it. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, and I hope you be safe.